Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cooking with Big Mark. Today we are discussing preserving food.
Yes, this we're talking about is sort of a little different from the others we've been doing last week with the hints. And now we're talking about people have often ask, what about labels on food when you buy it in stores, sell by, use by, whatever, what they all mean. So I'll get into a little bit of food safety. Of course, the four big C's of food safety is cleaning, cooking, cross-contamination, and chilling. Cleaning be as you go along, wipe things. Always, anytime you're doing, wipe your counter, wipe the knife, especially when you're doing poultry and things. And because they can, you can contaminate other foods, but especially fresh meats and things. Cooking comes down to proper temperatures to use. That's why the importance of that instant read thermometer we talked about last time plays into that as well. Cross-contamination is when you get things that you're working on a board with one thing and the blood or juice gets mixed in with other things. That can cause, they call cross-contamination, so you got to be careful of that. And if you get any in the refrigerator, if you got any, you bought fresh hamburger or something, you still got some blood in it, make sure you keep it on the lower shelves, not on the upper shelves where it can drip onto something else. And then chilling, of course, is just make sure that you're keeping foods for whatever stage they're in at the proper temperature. Cold foods cold, hot foods hot, etc. Then we come to the dating in supermarkets. When you get to them, there's really four of them. First of all, there's no federal laws that dictates how things have to be marked in stores for sale, with one exception, and that's baby formula. That you have to have exact times, date, and everything else on it. The other things are sort of made up. They develop standards on their own, and they're sort of going to. So what the sell-by date generally means that that's the last date you can display that for public service in the store. If it gets beyond that, you have to take it and either repackage it or do something else with it. The use by date is usually a manufacturer's date on it, and it usually refers to the date of which the perfection of the product or the best presentation of the product, taste-wise, looks-wise, is at. They say May 15, that's the peak. They say if you get anything after that, it starts to, the quality starts to go down. So you're talking about really a quality item there. Then you've got used by coded date, and that's where they have codes on it. They put those on so people, if something happens, they can trace to see where it came from. If there's a recall, and you see that a lot in seafood, especially shellfish, you'll see where it was picked, because again, you can get contamination. If something happens, they want to be able to go back to the source.
The tags.
The tags, right. So that's where you get the code. Then the expiration dates. You don't see that too often, but when you do, it's usually on egg cartons, which I don't understand because those eggs can last from 3 to 6 weeks. They have a pretty good shelf life. Anyhow, that's those are all the things. So the ultimate thing with all these things in your home, especially, of course, is the old smell test, the touch test. If something doesn't smell good or it's off, don't eat it, throw it away. Same thing with touching things. If you have, sliced deli meats or hot dogs and they feel like a little slime where the fat comes to the surface, again, you can eat it quick if it's not too bad or throw it out. So, but the point is, in a lot of these things, on the sell-by dates and the use-by dates, you can go a lot longer than those things portend on them. Again, just using your head. But a lot of things, especially now with cryovac packing, that's a whole new ballgame. I just had corned beef about a week and a half ago. I bought 2 months ago, but it said on the package good until May 15th because it was a cryovac corned beef. But the other thing is the value too. There was a markdown. I always look for the markdown, especially in the meat counter. And there was a package of beautiful sirloin strip steaks, about 1 inch thick, in Black Angus, and they looked like they were almost like a pound a piece. better, but the whole package was marked from 62 down to $31. And that'd be 6 meals for me because these are so big, but the meat was beautifully marbled. You could tell it was quality cut. You can see all the ripples. Of course, marbling is what you want to look for when you're buying a good piece of meat. In the old days, people get this big shiny piece of meat. Look at that nice bright red. That's a piece of, it'd be as tough as an old shoe. So canned foods and stuff are really, those are usually good for a long time. I don't think anybody has to really worry about those. The only thing you have to worry about is if it's dented or you see rust appearing, or most especially if you see the bulge in the top instead of being, a flat indentation where it bulges up. You've got some severe botulism going on there, and you want to get rid of it right away. The only foods in cans and jars that sometimes have shorter life than others are things that are acidic, like tomato sauce or cans with fruit, because they're acid in the fruit, and that can sometimes shorten a little bit. But for the most part, I don't think you have to worry about it. Fresh foods and you buy, that's a whole different story. Poultry is the biggest one that everybody complains about is a problem. So when you buy poultry, I would use it, either 2 to 3, 4 days after you buy it. Now you can freeze it right after that too for a month or two, one to 2 months with no problem. Meats like beef, lamb, pork, so it's about 3 to 5 days if you buy it fresh, and the same thing in the frozen, 1 to 2 months. Eggs, I mentioned 3 to 5 weeks. Fresh fish, again, I would sort of say 1 or 2 days. That stuff. And of course, all the things are wrapped. These are cryovac things. That's a different story. But just for normal, you see fish in a counter. I want a pound of that. You bring it home. It's best to use it within 1, 2, or most 3 days. Otherwise, but fish freezes are sometimes better than the meat does. So that's, you can go 2 to 3 months. With frozen fish. Salads that you get from the deli counter, those are usually good for 3 or 4 days. Hot dogs usually anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. Bacon, they say 1 week, although I've had bacon, which is almost like a cryovac pack nowadays. I've had bacon 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and still used it without any problem. Again, if you open up and you smell something weird, then but that very seldom happens. All those items, again, can be frozen fine, for 1 to 2 months. Sausage, fresh sausage, you buy those, they talk about raw sausage, 2 to 3 days. Then you have the cooked sausage, which is, 7 to 8 days. And that's all these new things like al fresco, the apple chicken sausage, and those now, those are cooked, so they last, they last a lot longer. And those, again, can all be, frozen very well. The fresh produce, you have to use your head on that, pretty much list. If it disintegrates, it's going to tell you that. I mean, leaves, if it lettuce, leaves wilt, spinach, any greenery type things wilt. Root vegetables, you take those and you keep them in a dark, cool place. In the old days, and even in Europe, the people here, they have these root cellars, which would be underground and at a fairly constant temperature. Things like turnips, potatoes, onions, garlic. Those things will last a long time, but in the home, just in a cool, sort of a cool, dark place. Prepared foods are a whole other ball game. If you're buying, either get, delivery or takeout, and it's hot food, you want to make sure that the temperature doesn't drop below the 140 degrees, or you want to eat it within 2 hours. That's sort of the bellwether for buying food outside. And the same with cold food. You don't want that to get into higher temperatures, and the same thing within 2 hours. Otherwise, refrigerate it. If you're going to save foods and to freeze them and they come in hot, try and put them in a flat container so that the density gets lessened, so that they can cool down. Let them cool down a little bit before you put them in the refrigerator. And the same with any hot foods that you're going to make yourself. I make a lot of preparations that I'll eat half and freeze half for another time. You want to let those cool down. If they go into the refrigerator hot, number 2, they go through that zone of contamination too quickly. and they also will affect anything else, anything else that's in there. I think the other thing that people talk about with food safety is defrosting. And that's something you should never leave stuff out on the counter uncovered to defrost. If you know you're going to need something overnight, next day you get a frozen steak, take it out and put it from the freeze into the refrigerator and let it thaw out naturally overnight. It's perfect. You can also do things in cold water, things like shrimp, frozen shrimp, you can let up in cold water. Or you can do other things wrapped up in cold water. It's a heat transfer thing, and it works. Then, of course, there's the microwave. The microwave is a very good defrosting item. So those are some of the things. I think any of the jars, prepared foods and things you want to, again, when you're reheating anything that you've chilled, you want to make sure it's 165 degrees. Then you have the anybody who's freezing vegetables, you want to generally blanch it before you freeze them. And other shelf lives like barbecue sauce is good for a year or so, ketchup a year and 18 months, mayo 3 to 6 months. Mustard goes on for a couple of years. You can't going to be bothered by mustard. But the rule again, salad dressing is about a year. Bottled salsas, can be about 1.5 years. Any of these once opened though, from the shelf, like what you want to do then is I would put them in the refrigerator. Cereals, cakes, cookies, all those kinds of things that are sort of dry box, those will go on forever in some cases, but they get stale eventually. It's a different kind of food diminution. So those are just some overall views about things, but the main thing again is use your head, taste stuff, unless it's obvious, but just be careful and use kind of, small little safety measures, and that'll keep yourself alive and your food processing, purchasing a joyful task and an edifying experience.
Excellent. So to pair with today's theme, there really was very little one could do unless we were going to taste Madeira or sherry or something that's affected by its storage. So I decided just to do something that's seasonal. We're getting into the warmer weather, and we have here are the Elk Cove Rosé of Pinot Noir. This is from Oregon in the Willamette Valley. The Campbells who make this, their son is now the winemaker. First moved to Oregon in 1974. There were, when they started, I think there were about 10 wineries there. Obviously, there's a plethora now. But it's named after an incident that happened the first winter they were there, living in a trailer on this property. There was a homestead that they've now turned into a winery. A large herd of Roosevelt elk came and sort of to winter around their trailer. So a momentous occasion indeed. They named the winery after said elk. So here we have our lovely color. I don't really believe in rosé season, as Eric Asimov wrote about 8 or so years in the Times. Rosé is good all year round, but I definitely get a hankering for it when the weather gets nicer. So given the nose, a smell, I'm getting some nice ripe strawberry, some geranium, a little red currant. And then on the palate, it's just delicious. It has a nice acidity, and there's a lot of fruit sweetness. And obviously fruit sweetness is an aesthetic descriptor because all of the sugar that's produced in any wine, even a very sweet wine, is coming from the fruit. But this has that nice, sweetness if you think of like a red, delicious apple, and just incredibly refreshing, very nice body. I can't drink red wine the way I used to be able to, and even like a Cabernet or Shiraz rosé can get me, but a Pinot Noir rosé is still a lovely treat to enjoy. Thank you guys so much for joining us again.
Mike, before you go, I just thought of one other little hint that.
Oh, hold on.
If we're losing food in the your refrigerator, sometimes gets caught in your bottom shelves in the back, you forget it's there. Take a sheet pan or trays or something and put it on your bottom two shelves. And then you can put your stuff on, you can slide the tray in and out. And that way stuff will not get lost on lower shelves where you can't see them.
Yeah, it's okay. We have all our condiments in the little drawer that way. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, you had the mustard Lazy Susan with like 15 mustards in the fridge, which I was always very impressed by.
Yeah, right.
A certain sense of mustard opulence. All right, you got anything else?
Yeah, I'm getting too old to cut the mustard. No.
Oh my heavens. All right, this has been another Cooking with Big Mark. Goodbye.